Hello, welcome to Spiral Revival, where we explore reality in an ever-curious way. Today we're swimming around with you.
Yeah, that's me. I'm Daja.
Yes, this is Daja. And why are we in puppets today?
Well, it's definitely a toy, right? But it's definitely also a tool to evoke everyone's inner child. And it's not even, it's a pretty spiritual term, I guess, but it's also just everybody was a kid once and that lives within us. And it's something that everyone can tap back into.
Yes.
For fun and for healing. Up to you, depending how deep you want to go. But yeah, I mean, I also, and this is less to do with inner child stuff and more about just, healing yourself through different sides of yourself overall and, how we contain multitudes and everything. I mean, I think healing your divine feminine and masculine actually has a whole thing to do with this. I recently made a friend who is, he is a dude who, but he wears crop tops and you could say that he's a gender bender, but he's like, I don't even, I feel like I'm a dude, but it's like, why does me dressing differently in clothes that are supposedly feminine have to mean that maybe I'm questioning my gender? I still feel like a dude, but I just like dressing up, and we really like dressing up together with our friends and trying on each other's clothes. And it's not a political statement or an identity thing. It's just like, this is simply fun and that looks good on you. And we get to like, it's an opportunity to validate each other outside of, that outfit's hard, that's drip, that's, you did that really impressive achievement thing that society or your parents would deem acceptable, versus just like, cool glitter, bro.
Yes. And you don't have to politicize style at all. Like it doesn't have to be like, oh, he's breaking the rules, it's like,
which is also amazing, but it just doesn't, it doesn't have to mean that.
Yeah, I feel like in the beginning, but at some point the best thing you can do is just normalize it. Yeah. And that's the most radical thing almost. Just instead of making a big deal out of it every time, then it's always going to be different or like out of the norm, and then actually just accepting it as the norm and not worrying about it so much. That's more revolutionary at some point.
Yeah. Oh, I just realized my ADD came out to play, because what I was getting at was healing the divine feminine, though. Like adorning yourself is such a good way to do that. I've had a couple friends ask me like how I did work on that. And I feel like healing the divine feminine is this thing that I don't know. I often see it. It's like womb work, which is really powerful and beautiful. And like they're reading like Women Run with Wolves and stuff like that. But
Learning.
there are like light, simple ways, just by adorning yourself, anointing yourself with oils and putting on some fun, like your grandma's jewelry, and like just like dancing in the sun or naked in your room. Just like these simple rituals that we can tap into to decorate our bodies and feel good in them.
Yeah, doing things that make you feel divine and beautiful, makeup, or even just self-care. I remember I did the Deepak Chopra 21 Days of Abundance during quarantine. And I remember this one day that really stuck with me, which was basically to attract abundance, creating luxury for yourself, and not seeing luxury as something that really needs money, but just doing something that is good for yourself, like taking a bubble bath and putting on a bunch of lotion, taking the time to do that, and allowing that and accepting that as a luxurious moment for yourself that you created for yourself.
Yes. I think about that every time I go out and I order like a cocktail or fancy pretty drink. It's like, this is a leaf with a couple drops of something floral. And so I got lavender drops like at Sprouts, like not lavender oil that you put on your body, but like lavender, I don't know, like a tincture type
like
thing.
Essence.
Yeah, and it just makes everything taste like lavender. So I started dropping it in like whatever I was drinking, champagne, like just whatever. And so all of a sudden, instead of serving water when people come over, like, do you want lavender water with a mint leaf in it? And it's
easy.
Like bougie is healing when you serve it to yourself and you're not paying for it, when it has nothing to do with capitalism.
Yeah, you can just take the time to go outside and pick some flowers and decorate your space, or maybe look at the ingredients that you have and see if you can upscale whatever it is that you're making.
And affirm that you're deserving through that.
Yeah. Also, even if you don't have anything to add physically, just taking the time to pray over your water, bless your water, thank your food and water and all of the processes that went into making it. Yes. That's already honoring yourself and what's going into your body and such.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Well, do you feel like when you introduce these worlds or maybe try to bring this form of play to people who might not be so familiar, do you notice anything between the people who maybe often enter forms of play and experience that versus people who maybe forgot that that's something they could do?
Totally. And I'm so glad you asked that because, and you know, first I want to say there's a feminine masculine thing there too. I think the common denominator between a lot of the folks that resist it are that they present mask in some way. It's harder. I mean, it's so sweet and wholesome when, you know, a few of my guy friends will soften immediately, but the most of the people that resist are like, haha, like that's silly, like, and they put it on for a second, they take it right off. And then I always like to challenge them to be like, well, let's stay here for a while, you know, the safe play space. And it's often whatever femmes are in the room who encourage the others to be like, come on, like, you know, and it's not like they're taunting them, but I think they feel taunted. They feel like, you know, put on the spot. And so I try to speak softly and be like, it's okay. Like we're just joking around. It's light. I'm not testing you, you know, and they do get really nervous. And I would say like, it's often dudes, it's often people who are like not playful. Like they take things pretty seriously in other ways too. It's just like, because at the end of the day, it's allowing yourself to surrender and soften, be vulnerable. And there's that serious kind of vulnerability that you're willing to like psychoanalyze things with someone, but play is a whole different kind of vulnerability.
Yeah, because it isn't logical at all. And so you don't really have a structure to go on. You have to be creative. And I think if somebody isn't exploring their creativity, they may actually be very insecure and think that they can't make anything up or that they don't have a rich creativity. It's not for them. That's what I feel like I've noticed, because you're right, it is definitely a masculine and feminine thing. And the feminine is definitely able to hold space for vulnerability and creativity and play and flow. And I notice sometimes in spaces that are like social spaces, right when the divine feminine energy may start coming into balance or maybe taking over the energy in the room, you can tell some people have to remove themselves entirely because it makes them so uncomfortable or nervous or anxious that there's no more control or structure or dynamics that they understand. They just have to submit to whatever might take them. And yeah, I've noticed in spaces where it's like guys and girls hanging out, sometimes there might just be like a big cuddle puddle that forms, and it's just like total vulnerability and surrender and just like, let's just cuddle each other. Like it doesn't, we don't have to like,
regardless of our own walls or gender or whatever. And I think that's something that can really be explored in queer spaces for sure. Like I love the idea of a bunch of people who have decided fuck gender, you know, like our non-binary friends just getting in a cuddle puddle and feeling like not even like a technical physical cuddle puddle, but just like coming together in that way. Like we are safe now to embrace ourselves and each other. You know, that's what play is to me. It's just like, we're free to do that now. And like, you know, I see you for your child self and who, like, you know, without all the things that society told you to be. And like, I love you for that. And like, I celebrate that. Continue to be that.
Yeah. I feel like with women, what may hold them back from spaces where there may be intimate touch or intimacy in general, or like unsure about what it may lead to, is because sometimes we enter those intimate spaces thinking it's just fun and play, and then we get taken advantage of.
Yeah, there's an expectation from guys for it to lead somewhere romantic or sexual. Because and
I think that why guys get nervous is because they feel they're entering that space and it won't lead to something sexual, which is what maybe they understand.
Yeah, I think deep down a lot of dudes don't even like, I don't know. I've been the one of the guys a lot of times, and I've heard the guys be like, plotting before a house party, and they're just like, we want to get laid. Like that is their intention. And it's like, do you not feel safe to simply connect? There's plenty of dudes that do feel that way, and I'm sure they're tired of these gross cis het boys who act like this, like making them look bad and continuing to make their femme friends feel unsafe.
Yeah.
But it's like, we need more of the soft boys to speak up and be soft out loud and openly, and set an example for other men to feel safe to be soft and just connect outside of, I don't know, their desires, their expectations.
Yeah. And I feel like maybe it's because there is not explored enough that there are many, many different ways to reach an intimate moment or be vulnerable that never has to get to that point. You can just talk. There's so many forms of intimate, soft, and vulnerable touch as well. Like soft touch, massages.
I'd love to be able to play with someone's hair or fingers, even kiss their fingers without it meaning that I want to fuck them. Like, can I just like be like, you have such nice hands, but like,
let me lick your earlobe.
Yeah, and like, you know, that's and run the risk of that turning someone on, but like, just like, you know. And I think we were talking about earlier too how like a lot of femmes will just like allow each other to be intimate and not make it into anything until they have a clear sign, consent and reassurance that that's what the other person wants.
Yeah, because I think that that's a difficult space to navigate, because as somebody who's gone through the world in a feminine way, just feeling objectified and feeling taken advantage of multiple times throughout our existence, then it's like, if you're coming into a sexual or romantic encounter with another female, you're so aware of how bad that feels that you're like, I do not want to make you feel that way.
Yeah. And we're like, there's almost like a silent solidarity, like already, like, what can I do to, you know what? That's what it is when we go out and we all go to the bathroom together.
Yeah.
It's like, it doesn't even have to be said like, bitch, I'm coming with you. I don't care who you are. I might not even like you, but I'm looking out for you. And I care more about your safety than, you know, this guy who apparently
cares
likes
about
you know, that, and then you guys have been talking and this and that, and it's like, that's because they don't have maybe as many experiences about it. And I always am wary of saying that too, because it's like, you know, guys totally have their own experiences like that. Probably not as many, but they're also, we don't know how many, because they're not talking about it because they don't feel safe to.
Definitely. Because I feel like people feel much more comfortable talking about male sexuality and their experiences and like asking for details. And in the same way that people realize that they were overly vulnerable or maybe taken advantage of and don't realize so much later, I feel like that definitely happens with a lot of guys with like sharing their sexual history and like just like people maybe feeling like their sexual experiences and their sexuality is an open book to just talk about, because it's like, oh, you're a guy, like it doesn't matter, that's not vulnerable or intimate for you.
Yeah, I know. It's like so interesting how guys get to, I don't know, they talk about sex with one another and it's like bragging in numbers. And then with femmes, I notice it's like sharing like the quality or the intimacy or the nuances of that experience. But if, you know, if a femme has a bunch of numbers under her belt, like, oh, I fucked all these dudes, it's like, in general, in society's eyes, that's nasty. That's looked down upon.
Yeah, I think that in the terms we're talking about, it's like the masses of the society, and I think that the mythology of the current society, in terms of the masculine and feminine, it's out of balance.
Yeah.
And so there's an overpowering of the masculine, which makes it a toxic masculine, which is like overpowering, competitive, capitalistic, hierarchical, and then a toxic feminine, which is very submissive and kind of like
makes herself small for spaces. Reliant and yeah.
And so we need to definitely like create and encourage that balance, which I feel like looks like brotherhood and sisterhood, where the sisters are able to hold that space for vulnerability and facilitate that, and the brothers are able to protect that. And like protect the feminine and so provide the stability and the foundation and the support.
Yeah, I think in like a divine union kind of situation, or even like
Just
like
within even
chosen
the
family
society,
too. Yeah, just like family. Like we should all feel like that siblinghood is like felt in our friend groups and chosen families and such.
Yeah, it's definitely important to have platonic relationships with people.
Oh,
that
can I
you
get a
meet
can I get a sip of that?
Yeah, we need, even though we're swimming in a huge ocean, we kind of need to get some water.
I need a break because
Yeah, we're gonna
my
take
arm
a
is
sip.
tired. But water break intermission.
That water was so good.
Different.
We're hydrated now,
Yeah,
for sure. And I'm ready to just keep talking with you about play and the inner child. And I feel like asking, how do you feel like this, like, because you mentioned that it's something that you've held on to from your childhood and carried it into adulthood and young adulthood as you've grown. How do you feel like it's shaped the way that your life has personally developed as compared to maybe the typical way, the typical route that young adults may find themselves on? How do you feel it may have helped you or changed your path or maybe accelerated things for you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's definitely worth mentioning that I worked with kids for the past 8 years, and I don't think that's any coincidence. I finessed my way into a teacher assistant position fresh out of high school. I assisted kids from K through 4 with reading and stuff. And then I lied on my resume to become a preschool teacher for 2 years. And I was only 19.
That's insane.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, if I wasn't good at my job, they would have sniffed me out and kicked me out. You know, they were already sus about me because my age. But I was passionate enough to lie and gifted enough to lie.
That you were, that wasn't true.
No, I think I just like made it sound like I was doing things longer than I was. Yeah, I don't remember exactly what I embellished, but I definitely embellished to get my foot in the door. But once I was able to say I was a 19-year-old preschool teacher, I mean, I didn't have to. That was the first finesse that opened the other opportunities. And then I managed a children's museum in Irvine, Pretend City. I don't know if you know.
Never heard
or
that
maybe
one.
we should delete that. I don't know if I'm allowed to. I don't know if that matters. But and then I managed the after school programs at different school districts in different counties for Tustin, Buena Park, Irvine. And so I think all that experience with kids, like I was able to continue moving up because of those gifts and those gifts. So they affected me career-wise. But, the juicy stuff. I mean, outside of my career, I definitely have been able to like evoke vulnerability in others and be that voice of reason or truth, shoulder to cry on, I guess you could say, for a lot of people. And I think a lot of people tend to feel that way, like, oh, my friends come to me for advice, but no one asks if I'm okay. But I feel like it's a gift that I don't feel like I'm overextending my capacity when I'm getting vulnerable with my friends. I feel honored to witness them in their vulnerability.
Yeah. And like that's your role or something that you feel comfortable in is holding that space.
Yeah.
That's really beautiful. I didn't know that you worked with kids in such a close capacity and in a way that's really vulnerable, because I've always wondered what it would be like to be, let's say, a preschool teacher or someone who works that way with kids, because there's probably many times, most of the time, it's just you alone with a big group of kids.
Yeah. So it's what the after school program, world looks like a lot of the time in public schools that we're underfunded. And so the student to teacher ratio is pretty fucked. The quiet kids or the troublesome kids aren't getting the attention they need. So I've managed upwards of like 100-something kids by myself, middle schoolers who are, sneaking drugs in the back. And I'm proud to say that if I went to Disney or something and there was a bunch of kids and a school administrator dropped dead, I could handle that, right? So that's like a skill, and but it feels really militant to like try to manage a large group of people. And I think there's some social commentary there about like our government like trying to manage everyone like they're the same versus giving them that one-on-one like work and like treating them as the unique individuals that they are. And I feel like the most revolutionary work I've done has of course been when a kid gets suspended and sent to my office, and I get to talk to him about how he ended up there and what he wants to change, what his intentions are, his unique traumas, et cetera, et cetera. Because treating everyone different allows them to come up with different creative solutions that fit them. And yeah, that's why I want to do art therapy. And I feel like this is a form of that, like healing through creativity.
Definitely. And do you feel like in those moments where it's just you and these kids that you perceive yourself in a different way, and maybe you feel allowed to step into different perceptions or experiences or roles that you might not with peers, but now amongst these kids, it's almost, I don't know, a form of egolessness or the potential. And I feel like that might be why there can be abuse of power in these spaces, because there's no one there to correct you. But there's also the ability to become somebody else, somebody more nurturing.
Yeah. I think all of the above. I think it's funny, like, so when you're managing a really large group of kids, one of the tricks is to yell like something that they'll respond to. So one of my favorites is, when I say peanut butter, you say jelly time, peanut butter, jelly time, peanut butter, jelly time. And I do that at parties. Like when everybody's trying to order an Uber to go to the concert, I do that.
And that
adults
works
respond
so well.
Yeah. And like, you know, I have like two friends who always roll their eyes because they're like, oh, here she goes again. And I'm tired of yelling jelly time at a party. But most of my friends appreciate it because they're like, it's effective. And people just listen. They're not, sometimes there's enough chuckling that it becomes a little more distracting. But after that, like at the end of the day, I got everyone's attention. Yeah. And so that helped me step into my power and learn about ways that I can bring fun.
In a gentle way.
Yeah, to guide people.
Yeah, how to, instead of controlling people or getting annoyed with people for not cooperating.
Hey, listen up, I'm frustrated.
Yeah, you can, and it's almost like an invitation to be more aware.
Yeah. Aware and playful don't have to be on opposite ends.
Yes. That reminds me of how like science and magic don't have to be different. They're kind of like the same. Yeah. How the logic, like again, the masculine and the feminine, they can be in balance and harmony. Yeah. Yeah. That reminds me of how in karate, they would do that where they would say like, attention. And that's all they had to say. And everyone would be like, standing up, like awaiting instruction. And so then my mom started using that at the house because we were really into karate and we didn't really want to listen to her, but we listened to like the honorable principles of karate. And so if she said attention, it's like, oh, I have to listen to that. And it's just interesting figuring out the different ways that we react to different things based on their context.
Yeah, the connotation they have. Peanut butter jelly time is hilarious. Yeah. It's silly, and yet it's doing the exact same thing as, hey, listen up. Yeah. Except it's not exactly the same.
It doesn't make people feel small because when they feel attacked, that's when they want to rebel against you. Like, you don't tell me what to do. Yeah. But the other one is more of an invitation to do something together. Yeah. And it's like, if you go against that, you're kind of an asshole. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I've had plenty of kids see me as an asshole and then realize like my intention, especially with middle schoolers. They actually, all kids, I mean, in different ways, they come around to see, like, they know you care and that you're just trying to look out for them. Yeah. But they can definitely cast you as a meanie if you're always being a meanie, if you're not taking the time to soften and care. So that's definitely another lesson I've gotten through childcare and education.
So you were a preschool teacher. When were you taking care of middle schoolers? In the after school programs?
In my more recent years. And that's when I was like...
That would be terrifying for me because they can be so mean and so bad and they don't care about other people very much. They're like, I want to make out with Jeffrey and I want to smoke weed with my best friend because we are the coolest.
Yeah, and we know everything at this point. Oh my gosh. It's interesting because in psychology, like that age, like tween to teen, is actually like when your brain really thinks you know everything because you begin to trust yourself.
You become more self-aware.
Yeah, and you're like, well, my survival skills and my knowledge have gotten me this far. And so there's this, you know how like in, you know, there's like early childhood psych and like preschoolers will think that they're invincible. And so they'll like try to jump off shit and be like, I can do whatever.
Did that. Yeah. I almost broke my nose because I was like, I knew I wanted to fly so much that I was like, okay, I think the only reason I haven't been able to fly yet is because I believe that I don't believe myself fully. I always know that I can like land on my feet. Yeah. So let me put myself in a situation where I know I can't land on my feet. So I put on my Superwoman t-shirt.
Oh my gosh.
And I put my arms inside of it, my legs inside of it. Like I fully wrapped myself inside of it so I couldn't use my arms and legs.
You set yourself up to surrender and trust yourself as fuck.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
And so I went to like the top of this counter and I just threw myself off of it.
That's hilarious.
Thinking, like, if I have no other option, I will fly.
I'm going to force it. I know. I think that's so funny and cute that our brains, dangerous
like
too.
Trigger the fight or flight response quite literally.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, that's super normal. And then like, in a spiral like way, we come into that phase again.
Yeah, the
in
second
teenhood.
individuation.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
And so, yeah, the middle schoolers are nasty. And if you ask anybody who's worked with kids, that's the overall least favorite age if you've worked with most of them, because they talk back. They think they know it all. They're very much still children. And
they're horny, but it's like you're too young for that. Like, stop trying to get with her. It's so weird.
Yeah, but it's going to happen anyways. And then you have to cope with the fact that like, well, they're just exploring each other and that's humanity. Yeah, it's a lot of weird stuff that I had to realize. And it's funny because I never would have picked middle school, right? I didn't like apply and I was like, I want to work with middle schoolers. It was actually that I was working with this substitute company that like puts in counselors who like when people call out, whatever. And they needed a sub for a middle school site. Like they lost an employee and they needed somebody every day for several weeks. And I was like, hey, I need the money. This is consistent, but fuck, why does that have to be middle schoolers? Oh my God. And I joked that to the lead at that site the first day. And she was like, yeah, I'm not going to tell you it's easy. Like,
it's brutal.
Buckle up. And I ended up being really good at it because I knew I had these gifts.
And you were young.
Yeah, I was younger and they saw me as cool, but also like, this was my shit, this is my gift. And you really have to understand children and empathy and people, and how to treat them as people and not like little brats that are annoying you, which is really easy to do. And just how to treat them differently. Whereas like kids are easy because they're cute. Yeah. Teenagers are easy because they're little adults. None of it's easy, but it's easier than middle school, which, so that was hard, but they're the ones that need the most compassion. I mean, you think of your awkward stage and you're so uncomfortable in your own skin. You're so confused, and yet you also feel like it's you against the world and you know everything. Yeah. It's such a confusing time. And I think we need to send a lot more love to
feeling so
middle schoolers. Yeah. Tweens need love too. Can we send a little Reiki to the tweens out there and just
people I feel like I remember feeling very dismissed. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, you don't know anything. Like when you're older, you'll see. Like just so many things that it was like, okay, well, what about me now?
Yeah.
Like I know, I'm sure I'll know more when I'm older. I'm sure, but like that doesn't mean that I'm like empty now or like whatever I say doesn't matter. I feel like adults sometimes don't want to listen to kids or teenagers or tweens because it's like, oh, well, you don't know anything yet. Like you haven't gone through.
You'll see, believe,
and it's like it just seems like such an obvious projection of your own pain. Like maybe adulthood or something was really, really hard for you, and so you're projecting this like, oh, well, you haven't even seen anything yet, and it's like, why would you set someone up to
when
feel
that doesn't nourish
scared
them?
Yeah,
that's just gonna be like,
and it makes them
doesn't
not
help.
like you either.
Yeah, it's just like, okay, well, I'm not gonna open up to you anymore.
Yeah,
like what?
Like what the heck? They need support. Even, and also like if you're supposed to be the adult, why are you getting triggered by like a kid that thinks he might know more than he does? You know?
Imagine if people were like, I think I've healed enough to have a kid now, and then had kids. Yeah, we wouldn't have an overpopulation problem, and we wouldn't be perpetuating these exact problems. But instead, we're like rapidly birthing these children with all of these traumas, and then parenting with all of these traumas. So we have too many people that are fucked up instead of slowing down enough to be like, hey, I'm going to very intentionally bear children when I feel prepared to do so. You're never fully prepared, but you can at least have your shit figured out enough to where you're not dumping it on your kids. So I think our generation is more so leaning toward that. We're not rushing to fulfill the American dream checkbox.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that something you mentioned goes along with that, where it's like at some points you were in charge of 100 kids on your own. And so then it becomes like you're this person that has to become almost dictatorial to get them under control, which is something that does need to happen. And a solution that I think you've probably come to the conclusion of is more communal management of people and kids in those situations, so that there's more people in charge working together, and that way the kids can also choose somebody they maybe feel more comfortable with to be closer to. Just a bigger community rather than us against them, or like I have to get all these kids under control.
Authoritarian, like fucking totalitarian. I don't know. Like it. Yeah. Whenever it was like me giving announcements to all the kids at once, nobody's listening. People are on their phones. They're wandering off because they don't like feeling like one person is talking at them like they're everybody else. But the second I'm like, hey, I've created groups for you guys, because that's after I'm able to do like general announcement stuff. It's like, all right, art club over there, drama over there, engineering over there, and do homework with those kids so that you can create connection and community on your own terms, and get to come to your own mentor who also resonates with those things. Because, you know, I'd have my staff sign up for what they like, you know, like if I have a staff member who doesn't really like art, but nobody else really likes art, the second I hire somebody who's into it, I'm going to put them in an opportunity, like in a position to explore what they like. And because when kids can look up to somebody doing something that they like, you know, that resonance really builds a stronger connection and like mentorship. Yeah,
because then I think it allows the kids to feel seen and special and unique and individual for their own interests. Yeah. Because I think what you mentioned is interesting, and I haven't really thought about it that way before, but feeling not wanting to be talked to that in a way that you're being treated like everyone else around you.
Yes.
Because especially in that time, it is your second individuation, and I feel like that needs to be respected instead of like dismissed so much, in a way where you are realizing the individual parts of yourself and things that make you special. And it feels really good when somebody is able to put you in a group in a way. It's like, oh, I do belong with these people. This is my interest.
Belonging. It's so important. It's foundational. I definitely agree. And I think that's why I fucking hate small talk. Like, do you have any siblings? What do you do for work? It's like,
like this is our second time meeting.
Ever. And it's like, we have already unpacked so much, and it's because I'm like, well, what do you like? What do we like? What do we really share as people that are, you know, that share resonance for a reason, versus we both decided to come to this bar and I'm going to ask you the questions I guess we're supposed to ask right now. It's just like not juicy. Yeah. Oh my God, so cute. I love that bitch. You want to take a selfie? It's just like no shade, because at the end of the day, like everybody's where they're at. Yeah. But I think everyone is deep down craving deeper resonance and feeling seen. And I think that's what the inner child stuff does. It's like, maybe, you know, children are a lot more similar. You know, a lot of people are like, I don't like kids. They just see them as boogery people that are loud and scary and running around. Yeah. But it's like that boogery person in you that's like wants to just jump off stuff and find stuff out and ask a bunch of questions and used to be curious and excited and engaged and passionate. Like that lives in all of us. And like evoking that is where real fun connection happens.
Yeah. I remember, that reminds me of this moment somebody shared where they were talking about a moment with plant medicine where they received this message from whatever voice saying everybody needs to have time and space to retreat to a world like this in their lives. Like they need to have a world like this that they can go to whenever they want. Yeah. A world where they can play, where anything is possible, where they can explore and just be in awe. It also reminds me of something Ralph Waldo Emerson said, which was something along the lines of like, when you're in nature, you become like a transparent eyeball, totally egoless. You're just an observer that isn't being seen by anyone, because nature doesn't really witness you as much as other people, obviously. You just are there seeing it, and you kind of lose all concept of what you look like or your problems. You're just there observing and experiencing the nature around you and the world around you.
Yeah. Puppets definitely have that power too. It's like the stepping out of your body thing.
Definitely.
That's why onesies are also fun. They're not just soft. You get to switch into a mode of cuteness. You're like, I'm now this cute, soft plaything. And animals also get to be wild and rowdy. And I think it's so cute giving a kid an animal mask and seeing them, you know, step out of their shyness and be like, you know what? Fucking rawr.
Yeah.
you know, adults do that too. Everyone loves onesies. I wish I could take all the friends in the friend group
and
and
get
the
them their
person in
own
my family,
individual onesies.
especially though the people who are the most resistant. Think of your most stiff cousin or the uncle that's the most like, I don't do that stuff, and like them in their favorite animal onesie. Like imagine how healing that must be.
Definitely. And I think it sucks because sometimes when you try to share this with those people or people that you feel like would really need it, they often reflect this idea that like, oh, you think you're better than me, like you come here preaching this stuff, like you think that you feel like you can tell me what to do, like you're so much younger, like just all these things that make it seem like, no, what you're saying is silly, like I don't need to listen to you,
instead of seeing it as we all have gifts and I have something to learn from
it's just
everyone.
an invitation.
Yeah,
it's not really like I know better than you need to do this.
It's just like, come play. I've experienced joy here and I would like to share that joy. I've definitely experienced a lot of that ageist weird stuff because like I said, I got into the field so young. And so I was often managing people who were older than me. Like my staff were like people, and oh my God. Yeah. I didn't mind, but I definitely felt their resistance, their judgment, and they would talk about me. And I was like, sorry, I'm getting paid more, but I think it's because I'm just seen for my gifts and my ability to do this. Please let me teach you. And I'd love to learn from you too, because you got years on me. You know what I mean? We can all learn from each other. And if we happen to be in different positions and then are mad at each other about it, we're mad at the wrong person. You can transmute that into excitement to learn.
Yeah. Like, oh my gosh, and it definitely takes a certain level of maturity and comfort with yourself. So it's definitely coming from a place of not being comfortable with yourself, because the perspective that would come with being comfortable with yourself and where you are and what you've learned, and seeing somebody younger than you come and excel and make a revolutionary difference, change the way things have always been, would be an eagerness to learn from them, because they have a totally different perspective. They're fresh. They aren't constructed by the rules that maybe have bogged you and your peers down. And especially if they're open to working alongside you as well and learning from you, it's a really good opportunity. And I think that this is the shift that I always come back to, which is the shift from competition and comparison to community and compassion. From like the toxic masculine or like the solar plexus of power and ego and image, to the compassion heart center and wanting to connect on a heart level and unconditional love and working together.
So
That's
important.
a really important shift. I feel like it's the shift that we're experiencing right now that's kind of changing the way that we interact with each other and view each other on social media and in person. Well, something I wanted to transition into is, from this teaching job, you now have been traveling around the world and having lots of different experiences and adventures. What was that shift for you?
I mean, for my astrology buffs out there, I'm a Sag rising, and that we're most known for wanderlust. And there's a common misconception with your chart, and I'll keep this really concise because I know a lot of people aren't necessarily interested in astrology, but people think your rising is how you come off to the world. Big misconception. It has a lot more to do with your core self than you think, because it's how you've been socialized, it's how you've been seen, and it's the mask that you've been so comfortable in that it's like,
it's integrated.
Exactly. And so, wanderlust is a big thing for me, but also my family moved every 2 years at least. Like, when I was growing up, I never had like a childhood home. I moved every 2 years. And so the wanderlust bug was like installed in me. And I think you have a similar background of having lived in many places, like multiple continents too, right?
Yeah. Well, just traveling around a lot.
Yeah. That'll definitely, it makes it so that I get restless. I'm not used to sitting in one place for a long time. So when I hear about a friend who's lived in the same home for a long time, I'm like, how'd you do that? Because I get antsy after living in the same place 6 months, and so in adulthood that definitely carried on. And to close out this chapter of bopping all the time in my first several years of adulthood, I'm just ready to now ground. But I used this last year at the age of 25 to bop around and get to know different communities, and I collected a lot of lessons and experiences along the way to sort of integrate into this next more grounded chapter. Yeah,
that's really interesting. I feel that I didn't move too much growing up, but we definitely traveled a lot, And I found once I moved out and was living on my own, I realized, which I hadn't realized before, I am that kind of nomadic person that can't really stay in one place for too long. Even if I find a place that's really awesome, after a year at most, it's like, okay, I got to get out of here. Like, I can't just stay here. There's something else. And this life is short. I got to go experience it. Yeah. So definitely that antsiness to go and experience as much as I can, because I don't know, deep down, I feel like our souls all have different locations, people, experiences that we are already connected to, and we can either sit around and or maybe miss those opportunities, or we can try to get as many of them as we can. And I don't know which one is better. I don't think either one is better.
It's a balance. It's a balance. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just feel, I mean, when I was little, I would cry thinking about all the best friends that I have in the world that I'll never meet. Oh. So I think it definitely comes
Pisces
from
baby.
That. Literally. Oh my gosh. Because it's like, okay, I go to this random rural part of the world and I'll meet a bunch of amazing people. So it's like, there's probably amazing people I would love everywhere in the world, and there's no way I could meet them all, and that's so sad.
Yeah, that's so funny. I've never thought about that, but it's like, I used to always talk shit on my hometown where I went to high school and be like, oh, I fucking hate Miami. And Miami is shitty in its own way, but so is every place, right? I mean, Californians are spoiled because we have the weather and the beaches and the diversity as far as you can drive an hour in any direction and you're in a different kind of area. But as like, I'm sure there's people who grew up in Laguna, there's people who grew up in Santa Cruz, and they're like, oh, I fucking hate this place for these reasons. Yeah. And you connotate it with your angst. And what I had to learn to tell my friends who didn't get out of their hometown and kept our hometown and kept talking shit on it, I was like, look, there's beautiful people everywhere and there's shitty people everywhere, right? And I mean, even though nobody's like inherently shitty and it's their environment or trauma that may have made them that way, or they're just shitty to you and not shitty to other people that resonate with them. Like, I mean, there's different places and spaces, and I think we owe it to ourselves to explore what spaces resonate. I think I see some friends back in Florida that I'm like, dude, you belong in San Fran. I don't know what you're doing in Florida. And I didn't belong there either. Like, I had my lessons and my time there, but I'm way more West Coast, and people are always like, aren't you from the West Coast? And I was a kid here. I went to elementary school in SoCal. But I never got used to the Florida thing. Like, I really didn't. But some people fuck with that. I met someone recently who's like, I love Miami. And I was like, how? What? But that's different strokes for different folks. Is that the saying? Like, you know, that's your shit, It's
a weird saying, but I guess it makes sense. Yeah, I feel like I definitely feel that, like, when you mentioned that growing up in Laguna, I now, having traveled, I never hated it that much, obviously. But of course, when you're like growing up there, you're like, oh my God, I want to get out of here. But going away and coming back, it's like, this is the most beautiful place to call home. I feel so lucky. I love it here. I'm really glad that I grew up here. It wasn't a bad thing. There was a really small school. We all knew each other. And there's ups and downs, obviously, and things that we all have to go through. But I definitely hear people be like, I hate Laguna. Like,
and I think it's because it's our angst. And it's like you said, I want to get out of here. Like, I think between the ages of 15 and 21, you're growing so fast that you become this fish that can't fit in the tank that it's been given, right? And so, like, people who keep living with their parents, it's no wonder they start fucking hating their parents. You move out of your parents' house and you start to love your parents, and it's just you needed the space to expand and explore your freedom and your existence on your own terms. And living in a hometown around the same friends, the same people, the same shit does not give you the freedom. And it's really the private schools that have the study abroad things in high school. It's not accessible. But I think if everyone had access to that, there wouldn't be so much angst and resentment for our hometown and community. Yeah. And if everyone could move out too, of course, if you have the access or ability to move out at 18, you come back and you realize, maybe I didn't have it so bad. And I find these things now charming, endearing, and I'm able to lean into a vibration of gratitude when I think of my hometown.
Definitely. And also, just especially when you go and have those personally expanding experiences where you're able to find self-love and gratitude for everything you've been through and the super unique code of your life story. then it's like, this is exactly where I was supposed to be. And these are the people that I was supposed to experience and have relationships with and encounters with. And they made me exactly who I am today. And I probably helped other people become who they are.
Yeah.
It's all exactly it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
So traveling, were you solo traveling often?
Yes. I actually, it's funny you asked that because I don't think of it as solo traveling. I just think of it as traveling. And I think the fact that most people plan trips with people by default.
Oh my God, that kind of sucks. It's like the worst way to travel.
You know, like, of course, like look, I couldn't say it like this if I was a dude or like a, large, like, because it'd be like, oh, well, of course you could say that you're not a small femme person, but here I am, small femme person who's considered conventionally attractive to some people. It is dangerous traveling alone, but I also would love to do a whole something, I don't know, video or something about how to do that in a way that is safe. I always have somebody who works at a hotel or Airbnb walk me to the door so that nobody could follow me. Like, there's a whole list of tips and tricks that you could find online about how to do that. And so I think I think solitude is medicine, and traveling is medicine, and they're both medicine in such radical, transformative ways. And combining those has been everything.
Yeah, because when I asked if you solo travel, that's exactly what I wanted to tap into is one, when you're traveling with yourself, you're able to do whatever you want. Like, you don't have to get together with your friends. Like, okay, what are we going to do? Are we going to go have lunch here? And then we're going to go to this store. I want to go to this store. And it's like, oh, but I'm tired now. Whereas if it's just you can literally wander into wherever you want to go. I
can listen to my body instead of my friends.
You can turn any corner and nobody's going to be like, we've already gone around here a million times. You just keep going. It's like, oh, yeah, whatever. Listening to your music. It's a very fun thing. And I feel like when you said you don't feel like you're traveling alone, I found a very similar sensation because it seems like people who travel and people who are run into the same places, like staying in hostels or stuff like that. You realize that everyone's really similar who's choosing to spend their time doing those things. And you can easily become friends with these people. You can go to dinner with people that are in your hostel that you just met that day. Like, let's all go out and let's go to this bar together. Like, you don't have to worry about what they're going to think of you because they're probably going to go somewhere else the very next day. And you just had a good time with some random companion. And
there's no attachment or obligation to see each other.
Yeah. And then you become friends. And then it's what I found really interesting is the more I've grown into communities of people that are nomadic and travel and very fun and artistic and musical, I realized that some random person I met at a hostel in Latin America or Europe also knows somehow one of my friends here because they met at a festival or something.
It's the collective. Yeah.
It always feels like we're just one big group of friends.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And for anyone listening to this who doesn't know like what that feels like I hope this doesn't evoke feelings of I can't wait to find my people, because I see TikToks like that, where it's like TikTok somebody posts of like their dreamy life and then somebody comments, I can't wait to find my people. You will, and the way that you will is by radiating and embodying your absolute weirdest self, the self that wants to make puppets with someone you just met and just fucking go deep, but by embodying that and radiating that, you do attract your soul.
Yeah, the best thing that you can do is work on yourself to create anything, because not only with relationships and attracting people, but also your goals and manifesting, because oftentimes we may be given the thing that we say we want so much, but if we're not ready for it spiritually or within ourselves or within our lives or our responsibility level, that thing that we wanted so bad will crumble in our hands in a really painful way because we weren't ready and we didn't know how to take care of it. Snap. And that it's the same with relationships. And if we are able to nurture and kindle that well-being within ourselves, then we're able to bring forth the people that are on the same frequency as us and the situations that we're ready for. I feel like the TikTok idealization of lifestyles.
Romanticize your life. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And also just picking aesthetics. Like, I'm going to just be this.
It's like, we contain multitudes. Like, we are so complex. And it's not even that, like, oh, I'm so multidimensional, there's so many sides to myself. Yes. But also, like, you're not a brand. You don't need to be on brand, and you can completely change your mind.
You can be
punk
every
as
day.
fuck one day. You can be normcore the next day. And it doesn't, you know, and then like mermaid pastel fairy shit the next day. And it doesn't mean that you don't know who you are. It means that you don't feel confined to these labels or ideas of what people are supposed to be like. And I think Instagram really contributed to that too, because it's like, I want my feed to look nice. Valid. You know, I resonate with these colors, and so I try to post these kinds of colors, but then I see where it gets to a point where it's like, well, I can't because this will look bad on my feed.
Oh my gosh.
Well, what does that translate to? Like, well, this will look bad on my brand, on my part, on my page. Like I don't know. It's not
Why
just
are you commodifying yourself.
Right. Like what? Like, you're not giving yourself the freedom to exist all the way.
And also, like, who's paying you to care that much? Like,
Period.
You're not even making
Sometimes
money.
someone, you know, like I have friends
sometimes.
who make bank off of being an influencer. Respect. And I, you know, but those people often have a Finsta where they are being their absolute selves on the side, and that balance is key. But if you're not even getting paid to do it, then you're really just limiting yourself. You're tying a shackle to your own ankle and throwing away the key.
Because I'm thinking about how people, the reason people are influencers is because they influence, and we want to do everything like them, like buy the products, but also the way that they run their Instagram, right? And like you said, some people are getting paid, but it's like, why are you going to put so much time and energy into creating this brand? But it's like, this isn't even a brand. It's not generating income. It's not really bringing value to your life to a certain extent.
And is this the job that you really want? You know, like, are people thinking like if you
people just
weren't on Instagram, right? Would you be scrolling through a job hunting website and someone says influencer, and you'd be like, you know what, that resonates and I want to be that? Or do you end up doing the influencer thing because you happen to get a bunch of followers at one point for some shit that you posted when you were just expressing yourself, and now you're leaning into that one side of yourself? I feel like people end up doing the influencer thing because it actually earns them, you know, the validation, or it seems easy, or like there's all these other reasons, when the reason that you do something to make money should be because you resonate with it and you want to do that to make money. And that is, I say that from such a place of privilege. Not everybody can do that, of course, but I'm talking about the people who could otherwise, you know, like I'm thinking LA clout fucking, you know, I'm talking about first world, like city life people. Who end up doing influencer stuff because they happen to have a bunch of followers because maybe they're conventionally attractive or went viral at one point.
And even their followers then want to be like that, because I feel like social media, and I've mentioned this on the podcast before, cheapens our creativity, because if we have an idea or something that we want to execute, you
see if it's on brand first.
Yeah, you see if it's on brand. And then also Instagram makes it very, very easy to kind of satisfy that desire to create something. Yeah. Like, instead of going and actually making a project or taking pictures or making a little magazine or making a website with a blog, you just kind of put something on your story. And you didn't really do anything, but it satisfies the feeling that you had to create something.
Yeah, which is, instead of coming from a place of, oh, I want to be creative and I want to make art in that way that, like, when you're a kid and you take out your pencil box and your glue stick, it's like, are you trying to earn a certain amount of likes or responses online? Like, you're mixing it with your desire for external validation and dopamine, no? Like, you definitely run that risk every time. Like, how does an artist separate that online?
Yeah, I think one of a good rule is not posting your art like right when you make it.
Oh, I have this idea too that's just like that, where, well, I wanted to, you know how sticky notes has like giant sticky notes?
Yes.
Have you seen that? Okay, yeah. So I wanted to get everybody in a room and everybody gets their own, and we put a Venn diagram on all of it. And inside of one, and you know, if you're listening to this, feel free to try this on your own, but if you like
exercise,
have like a Venn diagram and it's really big, on one circle put the art that you would make privately. On the other circle, make the art that you would make publicly, this postable stuff that you think would sell on Etsy or Shopify or whatever. And then the middle, stuff that you think would, you know, resonates with your exact style or, you know, whatever, maybe not exact, and, you know, private and public art. And so we tear off the next page, and you would think that we're going to go dive more into the middle, right? Like, oh, what resonates with me and what also would sell? Let me make more of that. But no, like, make more private art and don't fucking post it.
Just
you. Make art for the sake of making art, because that stuff that doesn't need to look good or impressive or showcase any amount of skill is the art that heals you.
Yeah.
And helps you figure out who the fuck you are and what you actually like.
Yeah. And it helps you create, like, when you set the intention to make art where you're able to make mistakes and it doesn't have to be consumed by anybody but you, that's when you're able to develop new techniques and new skills. And it's definitely a deeply ingrained thing. I often have this thing where it's like, I'm going to start this drawing and I'm not going to use an eraser once because I'm good at it.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, I don't have to even worry about making a mistake. Like, I will make it perfect the first time. But why not? That doesn't allow any space for experimentation or developing something new or a new idea, because that could lead to a mistake. So we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
You know?
I don't like using erasers. I'd rather turn the weird random line that looks like an outlier into something new.
Yeah.
And I think that's an extended metaphor for some things. I mean, that's life. You can't erase shit, you know? And you have to make do with whatever you got now. Like, if you fucked up at work, that's now a lesson. Are you going to run away from it? Are you going to, you know, like, there's creative solutions that we're forced to make in life. So yeah, I think not erasing is definitely a good way to practice that.
Yeah. And when I mentioned the exercise earlier, or just any time that you allow yourself to just tune in and maybe sing or dance or jump around in your room, I find that we sometimes get to that point of self-love. And right when we get to that point of self-love, we get this trigger, this call to, like, post a selfie or, like, take a video of ourselves doing that thing that makes us feel good and sharing it immediately. And that kind of breaks the sacredness of it, because it's like, well, what would you do if you're the only person, you know? Like, that's okay, because we need to start valuing ourselves as the only perceiver, and that's good and just as valuable. And also, if we feel the need to be seen, because that's good too, like I said, line up your figurines and dolls and toys and let them be your audience.
Yeah.
Instead of it being having to be shared and posted immediately, like, oh, I feel really good doing yoga today and I'm dancing and I'm singing.
Yeah. Oh my God. I love the idea of bringing out your plushies and letting them be your audience too. Because it's like, there's nothing wrong with wanting to feel like the performer and, like, you know, like, honor the inner theater kid in you, or that Leo placement or whatever it is that wants to, like, show out and, like, flex, you know? And I always feel like when I try to speak into that, people are so quick to defend that and be like, well, this is what feminism means to me, or this is what, you know, they make it into, like, this is me reclaiming my body and my confidence. And it is that, right? It is that I respect that and I honor that. But if every time you're feeling yourself, you're posting it, it's no longer this, it becomes about those other people in that process. If it has to involve other people, if it has to involve the gays,
you're not valuing yourself
entirely, you know? It's like, and it's like, we became these people that don't love ourselves because of the gays. So on one hand, it can be healing to, you know, be, or like, to stick it to the man and be like, well, fuck you, this is who I am now, right? But if it's always involving other people, it's not the sacred, intimate thing that's entirely for you. There's a lot of room to almost entirely start doing it for other people. And like, I think, you know, I hear a lot of arguments about that with makeup. Well, what do you mean you're not putting on makeup for men? And it's like, well, it's tricky, right? Because if, and this is another exercise I recommend, putting on makeup for the pure sake of creativity, like, not trying to cover up a single quote unquote flaw. Yeah, it's like, if I'm putting this on with different colors and ideas and it's like I'm making art on my face, that's for me. But if I'm blobbing on a bunch of concealer to cover up any scar, if I'm trying to make my eyes look big and sexy, and if I'm catering to this idea that I need to look like a fucking billboard or magazine cover or TikTok person or whatever, like, why does that serve you to look like an Instagram filter? You know, that's serving the gays, that's serving society, that's serving the man. And at that point, it's not really for you. I don't know. Like, I'm open to being challenged on this, but like, it really looks to me like that's not.
I think maybe what it could be is having the awareness to ask ourselves that question.
Yes. You know what? That's what it is too. Because like my best friend too, she says she does that when she beats her face, she's like, who am I doing this for? And I think as long as you're aware,
Yeah.
As long as you're doing it with intention. If you're like, you know what, shit, I'm trying to get this gig and I'm auditioning for this thing and I am doing this for society today for survival or whatever, that's okay. But if every day you're performing for society online or otherwise,
unconsciously,
exactly, then that's when it becomes harmful.
Yeah. And I think like when we are constantly publishing those intimate moments, we're not allowing ourselves to actually build in that skill and that comfort, because what happens when we actually routinely and often express and experiment and practice those moments of self-expression on our own, we're able to develop skill without people checking in on our progress and knowing how we're doing. And so then when we are ready to perform for other people, they'll be pleasantly surprised. And it's like, oh, you've been taking the time and the effort to develop this skill.
Yeah.
This isn't just like, oh, I'm feeling silly and I'm just going to share it with you guys. It's like valuing yourself and your creativity and your art enough to go off on your own, develop it, and then come and show people when it's actually refined. And that doesn't have to be a thing with everything, but I think that there's a certain pleasure in being able to present something that you are very confident is being done right because you've practiced it so many times.
Yeah.
Maybe you've choreographed something instead of just, like I said, cheapening our creativity. Like, oh, I want to share my dancing with people. Instead of taking the time to develop something that feels really good and creative, you might just upload something that's your first shot. But if you were to have kept going with that, you could have led it into something much more interesting.
Yeah. I think we've lost sight of the value of sharpening a skill. And like, I think that applies to arts, but also like, anything. I mean, we post literally everything. Oh my God, you guys, I learned how to make a blah, blah, blah smoothie. Yeah. The point isn't to get a really good picture of making the smoothie and, after you've made it 10 times, but it's like, you would be so much more present to the experience of mastering a skill for yourself, or for the point of just getting intimate with an experience at all. It's not about being able to be like, I'm really good at this thing, so much as just getting into it without getting the other or the gaze involved. Like it's between you and the thing. And which really, it definitely shaves away at our opportunity to be truly, deeply, actually present.
Specialized in something for sure.
Yeah. Like I think we need constant reminders to be present, and that's one of them.
Yeah. Wow. How's your body feeling?
Which one?
This one.
Yeah, this is cute. I mean, feeling really like, it's funny because when I made me when I was born, when I was created, when I came into being. Yeah, it felt like this alias that was like mischievous. I was like, ho ho, but now that I'm just being myself with this face, it's nice not having to think about being a body, thinking about being like a femme and making, I don't know, like I'm sure my face does different things when it feels like it's being recorded. Like we have our angles and our weird faces.
And weird tics and stuff.
Yeah, and so especially as somebody, I mean, as being neurodivergent, like you definitely think about, like with ADD at least, like fidgeting. It's I don't really, I'm not nervous about it. I don't care. But then I look back at footage and I'm like, okay, when it's something I'm recording, I don't care. But if it's like for something else, I'm like, sorry, I was literally squirming the whole time.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. When I started recording myself and playing it back, I was like, oh, I have a bunch of stims and tics that I literally had no idea about. And I do this thing over and over again. It's actually kind of weird. I can't post this. I'll see how I feel about it, but I realized I feel like I'm only going to post the video version of the podcast that I do with other people because they're so much more entertaining. But the ones where I'm alone, it gets so intense. Like I get so enveloped in it that it's just me like freaking out, honestly.
Yeah. This is a fun way to avoid that or heal that, depending on how you look at it. It's like, I definitely got to figure out my my different positions to make it so that this is comfortable. But it's so fun.
Yeah. Okay, so this is kind of the closing question. What is your dream for the world?
Whoa. Is that like the universal question everyone gets?
Yeah, but you're the first person I've done it to because I realized I wanted to do it after the last one and before this one.
Dream for the world.
Oh, wait. Come say it to the camera.
Oh, yeah. Hey, my dream for the world. So
Oh my God.
let me sit with that while,
Yeah.
let's just swim here for a moment, because that's a big one.
Yeah, we can swim around. Here, this is my body. Got some wings.
Dream for the world. I mean, fuck. I think I think at first, I'm like love, like love
Yeah.
is the truth. So I'm like, I want everybody to know what's good with that.
Yeah.
But in school, I was like, one of my professors last semester was like, if you were the president and you could like, what's the first thing you would do with that kind of money and power?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a similar question. It's just more like logical and concrete. And I would love to end homelessness.
Yeah.
I would love to end war. I think it's so barbaric and stupid.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I get maybe there's something I don't get about it, but like I really think it's barbaric and primitive to be like, I can kill more women and children than you.
To prove my point.
Yeah, like what? Like,
how many more
citizens?
citizens?
Homelessness and war seems like it should be the priority instead of like playing in space, but I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I guess my dream is for everyone, billionaires and those suffering from oppression and poverty, to all know the truth. Everyone should be able to tap into empathy and do something about it.
Yeah.
I think there's way too many people who are comfortable in their privilege to where they can ignore problems that they can actually create change with them. Like if you have a little extra money this month, you should be helping someone in crisis, and that takes empathy, compassion, education.
Yeah, or even if you're blessed enough to be able to hire people to help you, maybe landscape your house or build something at your house or clean your house, maybe taking the time to treat them like human beings and ask them about their day and build a relationship with them, rather than kind of like, oh, I'm going to just chill in here in my air-conditioned house and, they're working here. Like, I'm paying them to work.
All walks of life.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Be an ally, be a person in their community, be their neighbor.
I don't want to mess up with your delicate, beautiful button.
Oh,
You're seriously the
thank
most
you.
beautiful puppet I've ever seen.
Thank you so much. That's way too nice.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, not me. Should we show our human form or no?
Why not?
Okay.
I'm gonna ask people like,
wait, you're gonna be a floating head.
Oh yeah, because I'm wearing a green screen shirt. That's hilarious. Fuck it.
Oh my god.
But yeah, I want to ask people who are watching this.
Oh yeah, what do you? Okay,
what do you think it looks like?
Imagine her in your head.
Yeah. Visualize it so that you can then be like, ah.
Oh my god.
That moment.
Okay, are you ready? Hold it in your head. 5, 3, 2, 1. Oh my god, you're. These. Oh my gosh, you are floating up in here. It's a turtleneck too.
So I'm literally ahead.
Oh my god.
That's interesting.
So, yeah, you said your dream for Earth. Okay, yeah, so we always end the episodes by begging you to go outside and touch the grass.
Me or them?
Them.
Okay. I was like, you don't have to beg.
I'm like, please leave.
You know I'm down.
Go outside, touch the grass, see the moon, feel the sun, smell a flower. Because even if you're like, I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah, anyways, I get your point, but I'm gonna keep scrolling.
Right. No, just
send it. You won't regret it.
Exactly, that's what I always say. You won't regret it.
Like, you're not like, oh, that was stupid.
Your brain is always like, you don't want to do that. You're going to regret it. Why would you regret it?
It will literally charge you. Why not?
Will.
What's your excuse right now? Unless you're like disabled, in which case, like,
you can just go to the window and feel the sun.
Period. Ask someone to help you. Like, it's definitely
worth
nature
it.
Is accessible and free and always available.
It seems like the most simple answer. That's why I feel like it's like, oh, let's move on to more complex answers. But nature really is healing for everything.
Yes.
Mentally, I feel like.
Yeah.
And most physical things.
And, like, it's a good, solid place to start. Like, if you're ever, like, so at a loss, like, you can put your feet in the earth and look, tilt your head at the sun and everything back on top. good amount of clarity.
Yeah,
Definitely helps simplify things so they don't feel so pressured.
You can become a transparent eyeball right now.
Do it.
Peace.